2016, paper 1. So in question 2 here we had an algebra question where it was a modulus inequality, and again we're told x is an element of the real numbers. So to solve a modulus inequality, the easiest way to approach these questions is to always square both sides. Because if we remember with moduluses, the value inside can either be positive or negative. So by squaring both sides, we have x minus 4 to be squared. It's greater than or equal to 2 squared. So on the left-hand side, that gives us x squared minus 8x plus 16 greater than or equal to 4. So if I bring everything to the left-hand side, that's x squared minus 8x, and then 16 minus 4 is plus 12 greater than or equal to 0. So that means that in order to solve this inequality, I'm going to look at the quadratic and I'm going to find where is the function greater than or equal to 0. In other words, where are my y values positive? So to solve the inequality, what we're going to do is we're going to let it equal to 0, and then we'll sketch our graph. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. So the factors of 12 that multiply to give us 12 and add to give us minus 8 must be minus 6 and minus 2. So if I replace 8x with our factors minus 6 and minus 2, I have x squared minus 6x minus 2x plus 12 equals 0. And if I take out my highest common factor, well then I have x times x minus 6, and to get minus 2 as being common, then I'm left with x minus 6 equals 0. And again, I can see that x minus 6 is common. So my highest common factor, again, if I take out x minus 6, I'm left with x minus 2 equals 0. So both of those factors multiply to give us 0. So that means that x minus 6 must equal 0, or x minus 2 must equal 0. So therefore we get x equals 6 or x equals 2. But of course this was not an equation to begin with, it was an inequality, and therefore that is not the end of my question. So I'm going to sketch this graph, x squared minus 8x plus 12. So it's a positive quadratic, so a U-shaped quadratic, and it crosses the x-axis at 6 and 2. And it is greater than or equal to 0. So therefore, it's going to equal 2 or equal 6. And I'm looking for where my y value is greater than 0. In other words, where are they positive? So above the x-axis. So if I look at anything before 2, I can see that if I had 1, say for instance, then my y value is positive. If I'm at 2, my y value is 0. If I go to 3, my y value is going to be negative. If I go to 4, my y value would be negative. 5, my y value would be negative. And then obviously at 6, it's 0 again. So if I was at 7, I'd get a positive y value. So in other words, anything beyond 6 gives us positive y values, and anything less than 2 also gives us positive y values. So therefore I would say that my solution is that x must be less than or equal to 2 and x must be greater than or equal to 6. So basically my solution is the union of both of these sets. And there was 10 marks going for that question, so it was 10C, and that was broken down into 0, 3, 7 and 10. So B then was a simultaneous equation, and it's a linear and a non-linear. So we have equation 1 and equation 2. So we always take the linear and we get x or y on its own, and then we sub it into the non-linear equation. So it's not a very nice one in this year because obviously we have a coefficient in front of x and y, so that means we're going to end up with fractions. So I'm going to get x on its own there. So I'm going to basically take equation 2 and rearrange it so that I get 2x equals minus 3y minus 1, and then I'll divide across by 2 to get x on its own. So I'm going to sub x into equation 1. So wherever there's an x I'm going to put minus 3y minus 1 over 2. That'll be squared plus x times y plus 2y squared, and that equals 4. So by squaring out the first bracket there, I get 9y squared plus 6y plus 1 over 4. So that's minus 3y minus 1 times minus 3y minus 1. And then if I multiply out the second bracket there, I get minus 3y squared minus y all over 2 plus 2y squared equals 4. And then I want to eliminate my fractions there. So my lowest common denominator is 4. So I'm going to multiply everything across there by 4 to get rid of the fractions. And that'll give me 9y squared plus 6y plus 1. And if I multiply minus 3y squared minus y over 2 by 4, well, 2 will go into 4 twice. And then I have to multiply 2y squared by 4, so that's 8y squared, and then 4 by 4, which is 16. So often when we're multiplying across by the lowest common denominator, students forget to multiply both sides of the equation by the lowest common denominator. Okay, so multiplying out our brackets then, we get 9y squared plus 6y plus 1 minus 6y squared minus 2y plus 8y squared minus 16 equals 0. And if I add all my like terms there, I have 9y squared minus 6y squared plus 8y squared. So that gives us 11y squared. And then we have 6y minus 2y, which is 4y. And then we have 1 and then minus 16, so that's minus 15 equals 0. So if I multiply the coefficient of y squared there, 11, by minus 15, that gives us 165, minus 165. And factors that multiply to give us a minus 165 that add to give us 4 would be 15 and minus 11. So replacing the 4y with 15 and the minus 11, I get 11y squared plus 15y minus 11y minus 15 equals 0. Group the first two, take out the highest common factor, and group the second two and take out the highest common factor. And I have y, leaving me with 11y plus 15 minus 1, and then 11y plus 15 equals 0. So if I take out the highest common factor again, we have 11y plus 15 times y minus 1 equals 0. And therefore both of those factors multiply to give me 0. So that means that 11y plus 15 equals 0, or y minus 1 equals 0. So that gives me y equals minus 15 over 11, or y equals 1. So now we have our two y values. We have to go back and find the x values. So what we're going to do is we're going to sub y back into this equation up here for x. So we saw that x is equal to minus 3y minus 1, and that was over 2. So therefore when y is equal to minus 15 over 11 minus 1 over 2, well, that simplifies down to give us 17 over 11. And if I sub in for 1, that gives me x equals minus 3 times 1 minus 1 over 2. So x equals minus 2. So it's 15 marks going for that, and it's 15C. So 0, 5, 10, and 15 was the breakdown for our marks.